This is Tech Addicts. This week, there's new phones from Samsung, S23 or something like that. There's the Oppo Find X6, Sony moving its camera production, and Honor's Magic 5 series excites. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts podcast. I'm your host Gareth, and as usual I am joined by Mr. Ted Salmon. How are you, Ted?
I'm alright, thank you. Sun's out. Can I believe it? The sun is out. It's quite cold still, but the sun is out and it's blue sky, well, kind of bluish, and the weather report from North Wales is quite different to last week.
Excellent. It's sunny here with a I don't think there's any showers planned. There could be a few Chinese weather balloons at some stage today, but
shoot them down. Go on, get out there.
I'll be out there with my potato spud gun. Spud gun, that's the one.
Yeah.
Cool. So having a nice week, are we?
Nothing to report really. It's all very quiet here, and. Do you know, I just can't think of anything to say. Nothing in my life has happened except... I'll come to it later, no doubt, but I've been testing a bit of gaming with a controller and trying to get Bluetooth working, but we'll come to that a bit later. That's about it, really. Yeah. Boring. I did a review of a Motorola Edge 30 Ultra against a... Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, and I could put a link to that in the show notes, I suppose, but we talked about it on PSC last night quite a bit, and it's up in my blog, and that was quite interesting because, you know, they're quite a pair of good contenders, even though the Samsung is a couple of years old now, or 2 generations old. It holds up really well and has some advantages over the Motorola, which is much newer, but I still preferred the Motorola. As you knew I was going to say that, didn't you? Because It's just I just like the kind of clean non-Samsung thing. But yeah, you can't deny that Samsung stuff is so flipping cool. I don't know how you moved away from Samsung into Pixel land, and the thing that I don't understand about that is why you didn't get bored with it, because playing with a Samsung, there's so much to do, and there's so many things to set up, and stacking widgets and edge panels and just decks and tons and tons of stuff in there to play with, and then suddenly overnight you've gone from that potential to a very straightforward and potentially boring Pixel experience.
Because I've been using Samsung for so many years, and I just got a bit tired of all the razzle-dazzle, and just wanted a more simple affair. I just wanted to use my phone as a phone for looking up stuff and for a bit of social networking, camera, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to have to go through endless menus to be able to find a function that sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's just a wee bit more complicated, and spending 5 minutes looking for something like that is a bit of a pain in the ass, and I just figured Pixel, you spend 1 minute looking for that.
Yeah, I do get that, and I see both sides of the story, I really do. But you know, you can't deny. And also, if you live your life in front of big computer screens and tablets and Chromebooks, and you've got a ton of other ways to do the same things, then your phone in your pocket can be a more simple thing, because it doesn't have to be doing all those things. I suppose these are designed for people that just are out on the road, and possibly people that it's their only computer, their main computer, their phone is, and so that's different to you and I both, who love our PCs as well.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, and it's not that I've moved away from Samsung forever. I can always go back in if I fancy that kind of glitzy. It's a bit like going to a nightclub. There's a point where you decide, I don't want to go to nightclubs anymore. I'm quite happy just going and sitting in the bar and having a chat with my friends.
Yeah.
I'm done with all that dancing and wearing boob tubes and dancing with the ladies and LSD and ecstasy, all those things that go with nightclubs. I'm done with that. Back to just a pint with the lads.
A quiet life.
Yes.
Yeah, I do get that, and that is veering me back towards the Motorola experience, because it's a quite a good balance, because you get some of both. You get, some of the things, the benefits of Pixel, but some of the benefits of Samsung experience as well. So yeah. Anyway, there you go. Digging deep to find something I've been up to this week. That's it.
Well, I'd say I was actually thinking about this earlier in the week. The hardest transition to make is your email, because Samsung has a really nice email client that does all your other POP3 and IMAP email accounts. Going to a Pixel, you're like, oh, I've got to find an email client that I'm okay with, because I find Outlook to be frustrating. And then all the other ones are just a wee bit weird, or they've got they've all got one quirk that you don't like. One of them has a rather expensive subscription, or they're quite expensive on the outright, or they don't do exchange, or this, that, and the other. And finding a nice, comfortable email client can be difficult.
Why are you not using Gmail?
Because that
plugs
is
into
such
everything.
a faff.
Really?
Yeah, I tried that for a while, and I started getting really annoyed because I was missing emails, because Google was going, oh, we'll put this one in this tag. And again, I wasn't interested in sitting down for 5 minutes to work out exactly how to filter things. I just wanted it all to go in, and then I would hit, oh no, that's spam, this isn't spam, I'll respond to that.
Right.
So, I
do have thousands of filters set up over the years, you're quite right.
Yeah, it's daunting now. It really is.
Okay.
And it doesn't pick up things very well. And I was shouting at Gmail the other day because I couldn't find something, and it had stuck an order that I'd made into promotions or something like that, and I'd missed it.
Right.
I was really pissed off. Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah, you can turn those promotion thingies off, of course. But yeah, you do need to spend time setting it up to some degree, I suppose. Which most people don't. And I've never used Samsung's email client, so I don't know what you're talking about. But and I haven't used Outlook since 2003. When I got
Outlook was quite good on Android, and I think I always had problems actually setting up the accounts, and you had to cheat in order to set it up. And I think some of the things got stuck behind paywalls and stuff, so I ended up not bothering.
Right.
I don't think you can set up Exchange on it without the 365 subscription. I might be wrong about that. I can't remember. There was some reason why I moved away from it. And also it kept crashing on the bigger tablet that I had, the Galaxy S7 Plus. It would crash every now and again, which annoyed me.
Yeah, yes it would.
I don't think it's made by Microsoft. I think they've got someone else to do it. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on, because we've got a bit of feedback from Mr. Gareth Williams, who has written in to say that he listened to the latest podcast, and he has to say that with particular reference to the imaginative ramblings of Gareth and the grounded influence of Ted, you simply cannot get this degree of quality infotainment anywhere else. Yes. Long may it continue.
Yes.
Right, okay. Roughly translated, the shit that Gareth comes out with and the sensible offerings from Ted, long may it continue. Right, okay.
I think on the last show you were meandering off about something, weren't you? And I can't remember what it was now. And I was kind of dragging you back down to earth. I honestly can't remember what it was now, but I think Gareth's referring to that.
Yeah, probably. Anyway. The mind does drift.
Thank you, Gareth. That's a nice bit of feedback. We do appreciate that.
That's lovely. Thank you, Gareth. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Imaginative ramblings. I'll put that on my headstone. All right, Hardline for the hardware, because finally it's happened. And we got the Samsung Unpacked event, and we got 3 new exciting devices from Samsung that left nothing to the imagination, much like the rumours that came out shortly before that we discussed last week. So we have 3 new handsets. There's the Samsung Galaxy S23, there's the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus, and the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Who saw that coming? Ted, is there anything here that really turns heads, or should people just go, it's another upgrade?
Yeah, the latter. The only thing that's going to turn heads really is the 200 megapixel camera on the Ultra, which many people are saying is completely unnecessary. I've got the 200 megapixel camera on the Motorola Ultra, and yeah, when you force it to shoot with using the whole sensor, you get very nice pictures, but they're big. In terms of storage, each one is like 10 times the size of a JPEG on a bin down to 12 megapixels. But yeah, it's there. And of course, they've retained the periscope zoom, so you get 10 times optical, the same as the S21 and S22. Yeah, a lot of it is evolutionary, and there's no real... I mean, even the look of these devices is almost the same as last year's. And Samsung have just gone for boring, evolutionary upgrades this time, haven't they? And maybe there'll be a bigger change next time. The only thing I was hoping to see, which is not here, is fast charging. It is 45 watts, but compared to the rest of the Chinese-based industry anyway, and Far East, they're getting behind on that now. And 45 watts when you've got 240 watts coming out, or even the sensible 125 watts with the Motorola, it feels like it's a bit slow. But yeah, maybe Samsung are kind of frightened of that because they've made mistakes with batteries in the past.
Well, no, I fully agree with that. I think that Samsung are treading easily because they know what could happen, and they're maybe just sort of watching the likes of Oppo and things like that as they through reckless abandon toward it. But the S23 Ultra has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery inside of it, compared to the Plus, which has a 4,700 milliamp hour battery, and then the wee dinky little S23 just has a wee cutesy little 3,900 milliamp hour battery, but it only has the 25 watts wired charging, which means it'll get to 50% of that battery in 30 minutes, whereas the other ones, Samsung are saying it'll be 65% in 30 minutes, given the 45 watt charging on the Plus and the Ultra. So that's an interesting... That's where they're focusing some of the upgrades. Camera, battery, and then we'll get into the processor in a wee minute. But even whenever it comes to memory, there isn't anything particularly exciting about the memory here. It is just what you would expect. There's 128 gigabytes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, or it goes all the way up to 1 terabyte with 12 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that's going to shake things down. If you think back to the old S20 or S2 versus the S3 versus the S4, and whenever Samsung were really sort of making big leaps, they've really settled down into that kind of iPhone way of just pushing out a few little updates that make it a wee bit more attractive to people, but you're not going to anger the people who bought the S23 for well over £1,000 last year. Yeah,
I'd just like to point out that the other batteries have increased, I think, but the top one, the Ultra, that's the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery as I've got in the S21 Ultra.
Yeah.
So I think that the baby one has increased, which it really needed to do, because those smaller Samsung flagship devices, in my experience, the batteries are just terrible, and you don't stand a chance getting through a day with it, really. But there you go.
Yeah. So if you were to have one, would you? Is there any particular one that you would pick, or?
I want the little one, but I want it with a battery case or something, so that you feel as though you're going to get to bedtime without it running out. But yeah, I suppose that the good balance is the middle one, isn't it? The Plus, which is a little bit bigger, not huge, but not 6.8-inch device like the big one, but come with somewhere in the middle, and you've got to compromise on the battery, which is a bit bigger and, well, right in the middle, really. Actually, it's not far off of the 5000, really, is it? Of the big one. So, yeah, maybe that would be the balance if I was buying one. Get the middle one. You?
I don't know. I'm leaning toward the S23. I know they've made a few concessions with the likes of the storage, and there's been some science worked out, and apparently the storage using that older UFS 3.1 as opposed to the 4.0, if that's the numbers, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it actually makes sense that they use the UFS 3.1 instead of the 4 in that smaller one.
In the 128 gigabyte version.
Yeah. Because it runs better, like, I think that was the scientific reasoning. But I still think back to the day that I picked up the S8, and I fell in love with that phone. I really did.
Yeah.
I'd come from some other big device before that, and I would go on to the S10 Plus, which was so much bigger again. But I still think of that wee S8 in my hand as my partner in life. I haven't had that in a long time. Where you just have this nice little device that fits neatly in your pocket. You take it out; it's got everything that you need. And it's not so bold and boisterous that people are going, oh, what's his phone? It's just a nice little quaint phone that has a really good camera on it. It's got a nice screen. It's a good size for one-handed use. It just worked, and I do think I would probably go for maybe one of the slightly higher spec S20, maybe that 5. They are all 8 gigabyte in the S23, right? I thought they'd maybe had it.
I think 8 gigabytes is still enough, though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Unless you're going to go mad with decks and start running hundreds of stuff at the same time. But what you're saying describes perfectly about the dinky phone in the pocket, my Edge 30 Neo. You knew I was going to say that. Because all those things you just said about the perfect phone in your pocket that ticks all the boxes you need ticking, doesn't go mad with anything. The Edge 30 Neo, the Motorola, does all that, and more besides. I think it was my phone of the year for 2022, and I still stand by that. It still holds my SIM card most of the time, and I really like it. So the S23, yes, but I just would be concerned about the battery, that's all.
Yeah. Well, you never know. The modifications that they've made to the processor may be to help with battery reduction, but also the screen as well, being a smaller screen and all that, and it's a dynamic AMOLED at 120 Hertz with HDR10 Plus built into it, and only 1750 nits, which is pretty good. That really leads to be. I think it probably would get through the day all right on that battery. It's not too demanding.
They've got this new badge, haven't they, on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy, which they've kind of said is their own version of it. Working with. Did you actually watch the presentation?
No, I was working that day.
Okay, I sat and watched it right through, and they dragged up the bloke from Qualcomm onto the stage who was banging on about this for Galaxy and how wonderful it was, and also that they're going into cahoots more deeply with Google. They had some bod from Google up there as well. But the 4 Galaxy 8 Gen 2 thingy, it seems to me that the quote they're making is that it's a clock speed thing. The reality is that there are small improvements, but by and large, they say the 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy is basically a Snapdragon 8 plus Gen 2. So they've just upped the clock speed, made it a bit kind of whizzy bangy, and then put a 4 Galaxy badge on it, which so don't get too excited about that.
Well, yeah, they've added on an extra 39 megahertz to the GPU clock speed.
Gigahertz.
No, megahertz. The clock speed's gone up by 39, and then the actual clock speed of the primary clock is up from 3.2 to 3.36. So that's
1.6.
1.6 onto the main processor clock speed. It actually reminds me back in the 80s whenever Lord Sugar released the Amstrad 464, and in order to sell it in Spain, he soldered a defunct 8K memory module to it to make it the Amstrad 472 because Spain was imposing a tax on anything that had less than 64K. 64K. So it makes me think, it reminds me of that Samsung are like, here, look at this. It's not really going to make that. No, I don't think anyone's ever walked out and gone, this Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, it's a bit sluggish. We need to squeeze a wee bit more power out of it. Yeah. But Samsung have thought that and gone, right, well, we need to set this high above the rest of the competition.
It's just a badge, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
It's the 4 Galaxy. It just gives everyone the picture that Samsung are in bed with everyone else. Everyone else in the industry that matters, they're in bed with them and they're working with them. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. So, what about you, listener? What are you dandering out tomorrow? No, not tomorrow. When is it coming out?
The 13th, 17th.
17th.
Is it
the
17th?
Right, okay, so it's still another 2 weeks.
No, 13th. Sorry, 13th. We'll come to that in Bargain Basement later. But yeah, I think it's the 13th.
So yes, dear listener, are you heading out next week to pick yourself up one, and which one, and why? I'd really like to know why. Are you just so enthusiastic that, the Ultra is the one you got to have because it's the Ultra, it's got everything? Or, if you're going for the Plus, why are you going for the Plus? Or are you like Ted and I, because just the wee one's the nice one? It's just a nice wee pal to have in your pocket and take with you.
Yeah.
Let us know. Do so. Now. Go on. Email us. Right, Marshall. What have we got about Marshall? There's a new Middleton Bluetooth speaker that is, well, it's looking lovely and it's priced nicely.
270 quid, isn't it, I think? If you look through to the link in the Engadget page, you can see it up against the Emberton, or the Emberton 2, and it follows, it's bigger, but it's still being said to be mobile. But yeah,
because it's got a strap.
Yeah, it's got a strap, and it's got, IP rating, 20 plus hours of runtime at mid volume, better speakers all round. So it's got, instead of just forward firing, it's got them all 4 sides. A bit like the Stockwell, which is really cool. And yeah, it's a bit bigger and just a bit of a lump. And presumably, when you hear it, it's going to sound a bit better. It's got a bigger battery, obviously, USB-C, and it plugs into the app, which a lot of the older ones don't. The Emberton, the Willen, and 2 other I think do, but not all of them do. But yeah, the app for equalisation and stuff. Looks really nice. If you click through the pictures that they provided, you can see all sides of it, and you can just see how beautifully it's made. One of the pictures demonstrates also that this is the first kind of the new wave of devices from Marshall that have a bass and treble control, but they're not knobs, they're rocker thingies, weatherized, water resistant, or proof buttons which you can turn the bass and treble up, which is really nice as well. So, and the usual gold or brass coloured accents and stuff. It looks lovely. I really, really want one, but 270 quid, it's a bit much, isn't it?
See, there's one thing I don't like about the buttons, and I think this is a lovely unit, and I would absolutely have one. I would never turn it away. But I just love the idea of being able to reach out and hit the buttons and know exactly what you're hitting and not searching for them.
Yeah.
These look really flush with the rest of the exterior, which already has a pattern on it. So you do need to know where you're pressing, and you could miss it. You know, I'm banging on about the Clear that I picked up.
Oh, yeah.
And, sorry, they sent me. I have to be honest about it. They sent me. And it's got big, pronounced buttons, and you know exactly what you're pressing when you're pressing them.
Yeah.
And I'm really appreciating that, because as soon as my phone rings, I can hit the pause button and answer the phone, and it cuts out the music, and it just works like that. Whereas I feel that this, you'd maybe be flummoxing around on the top, trying to work out which one's which, what button you're pressing.
You can't beat a knob.
Right, okay. I'm not calling the podcast after that.
Well, I've got a Stockwell too right next to me, and you're quite right. And also the on-off knob is really useful, because when you're using Bluetooth and connecting via your phone or whatever, you can turn the dial and click it off. It turns off. There's a click, and you know then that the phone is no longer connected to your speaker. And I'm not sure that these newer ones from Marshall are quite as simple as that.
Well, you'll have to buy one and find out.
No, you can buy one for me.
I can't. I'm broke. I'm trying to buy a new car at the moment.
Yes.
Or not a new car, a new to me car. A used car? That was supposed to be the best. Anyway. Honor have confirmed that the Mobile World Congress event coming up on February the 27th for the Magic 5 series and the Magic VS is going to be a global launch. How exciting is it? We were going to be getting this. The VS is a folding phone, much like the Galaxy Fold, but with a bit of Honor splash of ingenuity to it, and all their lovely software on it. And we have seen videos of it in the past, and I remember one being really quite interesting, and all the little flourishes that Honor had stuck through it. It looked really nice, so I'm very excited to see the VS actually finally get a global launch. So we'll be able to get a global version of this device to purchase. It's going to be all three phones in the Magic 5 lineup are going to be powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The standard version, not the new Galaxy version that is exclusive to Samsung. And there's going to be a vanilla version, a pro version, and an ultimate version. So they've obviously taken their cues from Samsung by doing that. Apparently there's going to be a light device that some folks have noticed on the Google Play console, powered by the Snapdragon 695. So there might be a wee budget device that they're popping out too. But is there anything that you're quite excited about with this new lineup that they're going to announce?
66-watt charging, Samsung.
Ooh.
Yeah, so they put a fast charging facility in the VS. I don't know about the 5. I've not even looked at the 5. But that's one thing that jumped out at me. When you start using fast charging, you start to look for it. And you start to think, when something hasn't got it, you kind of look down your nose at it. but yeah, they're after the Galaxy Fold series, obviously, and I think that they might have done well with kind of getting there. The hinge mechanism looks like it's very well done. I'm a bit concerned to see that in terms of screen renders, that the fold across the middle of the screen is still very apparent. And it was Oppo, I think, that we spoke about before, that claimed to have kind of got rid of that almost completely. But when you look down at some of these screenshots, the GSM Arena have held the device at an angle where you can see the fold down the middle. And it looks terrible. I know they've accentuated it to make you be able to see it at its worst, but even so, I don't fancy that at all. But yeah, the fast charging is the thing that stands out to me. We don't know anything about pricing, do we?
No, but I can't imagine it's going to be as high as what Samsung are asking for theirs. Honor are usually pretty good, and especially with a new device like this, they'll maybe try and get it into the hands of the kids.
Yeah.
And Honor, if you're listening, both Ted and I qualify as kids. We are with it and hip. So I would quite happily go to the launch event if you happen to have a few extra tickets there in Barcelona.
Uh-huh. Good idea. Here's the Magic 5. It's got a Snapdragon 695, same as my Neo, which is not bad at all. But yeah, there's no information about that hardly at all, is there?
No, it is. I do have high hopes for Honor, and I'm hoping that those images that we've seen so far are just obviously technical demos and stuff, and maybe the older Magic V, I think it was, whenever it was first hinted, and those videos came out of China, which had the older screen. I'm on the side of Honor here that they've probably made some sort of notable update to it to get that screen looking good for everyone to enjoy.
Okay, let's find out on the 27th of February.
It is a long way away, though. There's plenty of time for Honor to invite us over, so we'll just sit here and wait. Okay. Anchor have admitted that there's a bit of a lack of encryption on their Eufy security cameras, and this isn't the first time that we've heard this with the rise in cheaper security cameras. They've what was it? They told The Verge, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. The head of their global communications has told The Verge that they are a bit lacking in the security front with they fail to utilize end-to-end encryption and implement AES and RSA algorithms. But I guess they're going to be doing that from here on in.
I think you're playing it down a bit, because what happened was that during this period of this being active, they were uploading footage to their servers and not telling the users that was going on. In fact, they told the users that wasn't going on. They clearly said that there was end-to-end encryption, and there wasn't. And that's why they're in trouble with this, and they're going to get a huge fine, no doubt. And so people could just go, if they knew what they were doing, they could go and find the footage and just play it back in their chosen video player and just see what everyone else was doing. It sounds like a right old breach, but well, they as you say, they've sealed the breach now, so they say, and end-to-end encryption is implemented. So going forward, it should be okay. They do look nice, those cameras, don't they?
They do, absolutely, and I've very much entertained them in the past. The whole idea was that there was a central hub, and you didn't have to use the somewhat expensive cloud storage systems that you see on other rival brands. I've looked at Blue Rand's cameras in the past, which tend to do that, and I have a number of them in the house, and it's really made me think, is that another brand that's going to be suddenly splashed all over the headlines because they are a popular security camera, that they're doing it too, where I tend to record to micro SD as opposed to using their cloud storage, but is it being uploaded anyway? But I can't see packet data being sent from them through my internet connection, so I'm fairly okay with them. But if Anchor have made the mistake of doing this, then there'll be a fine, and the customers won't get anything out of it. They'll just get a bit of a software update that some of them will eventually apply. Yeah, that's the problem here.
Naughty Anchor.
Yeah. But we'll stick with it and see what happens, and we'll inform you if there's any other companies, because I'm sure there's many an unscrupulous company on Amazon that are selling cheap cameras just to be able to grab your footage. So Sony has moved most of its camera production into China, and DP reviews say that's up to 90% or maybe even more. Were they doing it elsewhere, Ted? Where else were they doing it? Thailand.
Oh, I see. They're moving 92% of it apparently to Thailand. Interesting, not to Taiwan, which seems like where everyone else is going, just to get up China's nose. So Thailand is the place they're going. Probably. I was going to say it's a bit of a shame that everyone's abandoning China, but the trade war that's going on between China and America is just having a huge global impact, isn't it? And all these firms that because Sony's Japanese essentially, it's a Japanese firm. They were using China to build their stuff because labour is cheap, but they have obviously decided that they're getting on the side of America, Japan and America, and not Japan and China, and they are getting in bed and sorting it out and choosing their side. But yeah, the Thailand bit I was quite surprised at. I wasn't aware that there was a huge amount of manufacture and assembly going on in Thailand, but perhaps there's more than I think.
Well, yeah, they're talking India, Vietnam, and Thailand are going to be the locations. But it must be, for that to happen, for them to shut down factories and totally relocate, it's going to cost Sony a packet as it is, and for that to cover, to be covered by their profits and things like that, it's a big step. It's not even a case of let's just ride this out. It might be solved in 6 months. No, it's dumping operations and moving. Yeah. That's big, really big. And if they do that, you're going to see an awful lot of other companies following suit, because the other companies are obviously not going to be able to survive if Sony can't survive.
Yeah. I wonder what the 8% is that they're leaving in China.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
that's the shutter buttons.
Well, no, it could be something as simple as China-only operations. Where they'll be manufacturing a certain level of camera for China.
Okay.
Because China could end up sort of closing trade borders and imposing all sorts of things. So the 8% of their output will continue in China. They'll just sort of have one factory left, maybe, that manufactures cameras for China. Whereas internationally, India, Vietnam, and Thailand are going to produce for the rest of the world.
Yeah. There's a photograph in this article of Sony's production facilities in Thailand, which obviously is already existing, and it's there, and it's not like they've got to go and build a new place in Thailand. So,
Well, they just have to expand it and be able to find factories and talent, or not talent, a workforce who is as good as what China have been able to provide them with over the years. And that's going to be hard to come by. Mm. And what's going to happen to all those people in China who are working in these factories? Are they all just going to... That's going to add more to the economic crash that China is currently suffering, what with COVID and the trade embargoes and all those sorts of things, because China's really suffering right now. This is going to be even more devastating, and then more companies following suit. It's all those people are losing their livelihood. It's a horrible state of affairs.
Very worrying. The whole global scene, particularly if China get into bed with Russia more heavily, and then we'll have a northern hemisphere versus the rest.
Well, they might be forced to do that just to keep their head above the water for a little while. Yeah.
Let's not get political.
No, that's not. And we'll get on to some sort of cheerier news at the moment, which is to do with the Oppo Find X6. What can we expect from Oppo? Because I've got an Oppo over here that I've been playing with. I meant to say at the top of the show, I will be bringing my thoughts on the new Oppo Reno to the show next week.
Because you hadn't opened it, had you? It was sat there looking at you.
No, and I've been playing it with it this week, and I'm not 100% with it just yet. I will be 100% with it next week.
There's an X6 Pro, which has got a giant camera island. Well, actually, the X6 has as well. But that's just ridiculous. I thought they were supposed to. That's even bigger than the. I've got the S21 Ultra in front of me here, and it's even bigger than the massive island on that as well.
I'm just having a look. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see some villagers.
Oh dear. Anyway, so the X6 Pro, which is the beefier version, but there's not a huge amount of difference, to be honest, except probably price when it arrives. There's 100-watt fast charging, but the other one's got 80 watt. There's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. The other one's got 4,800. It's got Wi-Fi 6E instead of just 6. There's a higher storage available with UFS 4 instead of 3.1. It's got a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 instead of a 8 Plus Gen 1. They both got the same AMOLED screen. Oh no, sorry, the Pro is a slightly bigger screen. That's an odd size, isn't it? A 6.82 versus 6.74. Who's making these screens? Anyway, GSM Arena are reporting that the X6 Pro is IP68 and the X6 is not, but that could not be true. GSM Arena sometimes get those kind of things a bit wrong. You can get the Pro in a what's it called, leather? What's that thing called?
Vegan leather,
eco leather, something like that, as a finish. But apart from that, there's not a huge amount of difference between the two. And if it's significantly cheaper with the 6, if you really want an Oppo Find X6 in the range, it's a little bit smaller, which, as we said earlier, is quite good, and it could be much better value for money.
Absolutely, I fully agree, and I think this could be, if they get their pricing just right, especially for a UK release, this could really turn some heads and have people going, because I think Oppo's just on the verge of making a big splash here in the UK. They're not quite a household name, but if this, on paper, this could propel them to that. I like this, I do.
Oh, hang on a minute. There's two different pictures going on here. On the China release of the information, there's a great big round circular
I saw
island.
that. I thought that was something else, and they just used that just for the sake of it.
But if you click through to the specs pages on GSM Arena, it's got a big square thing or oblong thing with Hasselblad at the bottom. So yeah, I'm not sure. Perhaps it's the round one, is it? I don't know.
Well, Notebook Check are going with the round one as well, saying that it's not expected until early 2023. But undoubtedly, Oppo will return with the Mari Silicon ISP as well.
Right.
And include the Hasselblad camera tunings.
Perhaps GSM Arena have just got old renders here on their specs page. Right.
Could be.
A 1-inch sensor, though. Is that 1-inch sensor a thing on both of them? I think it is. I think it's on both of them, isn't it? Very confusing, this is.
It is. Maybe we'll leave it until next week when there'll be more official renders and more other newsy people have done newsy things. But we'll stay with Oppo because they are silently releasing the Oppo 8T and the Oppo 8T 5G. And I have to say, these are pretty sexy looking devices. I do like that that kind of orangey, is it a burnt orange, is that what you call it? Backing
orange sunset.
Orange sunset. Well, that's burnt. You get burnt at sunset. The barbecue's over. It's time to go to bed. These are some pretty good-looking devices. There's the T has a 6.43 AMOLED display with 90 hertz refresh rate and a full HD plus. It comes with 180 hertz touch sampling rate and Gorilla Glass 5 on top. It's got a 32 megapixel selfie camera. There's 3 more cameras on the back, one of which is a 100 megapixel camera. I know that's not as good as the Samsung, and we should just instantly dismiss it. But I think it's going to be probably quite a good shooter, if you ask me. There's 2 other units, which are the 2 megapixel depth sensor and a 2 megapixel macro camera.
Microscope, please. This is the return of the microscope from Oppo. Well done, Oppo. I thought when they ditched it from the Find X3 Pro, when the Find X5 Pro came out, I thought that was the end of it. They'd given up on it, but it's come back. Well done, Oppo.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that doesn't put people off, because it's only 2 megapixel. Who would have that? This was 1998.
Fair enough.
So it's got the Helios G99 chipset inside it with a single memory option, which is 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, which is plenty for everyone. Everyone, I tell you. And it's got 5,000 milliamp hour battery inside with the SuperVOOC fast charging attached too.
33 watt charging.
Yeah.
Which could be better.
ColorOS 13 is on board, and obviously the T5G version it's got a 108 megapixel main camera, so there is small differences. It's powered by a Snapdragon 695 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's a bit strange. Yeah. But then I suppose it's got 5G built into the chip, so yeah, it'll probably have to have that.
Right.
It's got a 6.7-inch screen, 10-bit OLED display, full HD with the 120 Hz refresh rate and the 360 Hz touch sampling rate. So it does look to be a good bit better with a 4,800 milliamp hour battery in the case here. 67 watts charging.
67 watt charging. So I wonder if is the 5G version the global one, or is the 8T the global one? I bet you the 8T is the China only one.
I don't think it says in this article.
No,
but
there's something I've never heard of before. Ahi Glass AGC DT Star 2. Which is instead, presumably, it's a rival company to Gorilla Glass, to Corning, and they've stuck that in there. That's very funny. But that's a bigger device as well, the 5G version. So it's physically bigger.
I'm seeing Vietnam mentioned quite a lot on this, so I'm wondering if did the article come from Vietnam, or is it actually being manufactured in Vietnam?
They're almost the same price as well, like between £300 and £350. It's really odd differences, aren't there? Why one with a 100 megapixel camera, one with 108? Why would you do that? It's virtually the same.
Just to give that wee bit extra to try and push the 5G version.
Oh, the 5G version's got no 3.5mm jack. The T has got 5.3 Bluetooth, and the other one's got 5.1. This is really odd, isn't it? Oh, here we go. So the NFC. Oh no, they've both got NFC as well. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is really.
Well, maybe we'll come back to that one more.
We'll come back to everything. Everything on today's show we'll do next week.
Yeah, tune in next week when we talk about stuff we actually maybe have a better handle on.
Yes.
Okay, well, one thing you can get a handle on is the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition,
Ooh.
which is an ultra high-end wireless gaming mouse that'll set you back a pretty penny. How much does it cost, Ted? Have you done the calculation?
It's about £250, but you can buy these from Razer direct and nowhere else at the moment. Well, $279.99. So make your own guess about pounds on that one. It's not being released until February the 11th, which is in 6 days' time. And you can order it direct from the website. I watched a couple of videos with someone that's got early access to these last night on YouTube, and they do look absolutely gorgeous. They really do. It's all made of aluminium. No, not aluminium. What's it called? Magnesium. Yeah. So it's all metal and lovely, and no doubt cold in the hand. And it's got the skeleton shell on it. It's not like a lot of skeleton Mises that have got tiny little punch holes all across it. It's got big holes, and inside there's gaming icons and stuff you can see through the holes. It's just lovely. And if you had lots of money that you didn't want to spend on a Marshall speaker, you could spend the same amount on one of these Mises. And of course, technically, as a gaming mouse, they've upped the ante with lots of kind of technical stuff that makes it better than everything else in the whole world. The Focus Pro 3K sensor, maximum DPI of 30,000, blah blah blah. But you'll know more about this than I do.
Well, it operates on the 5G wireless connection, so it should be a lot faster and be able to support, a lesser lag type thing. So it'll be much more responsive because it is a wireless mouse. That's the thing here. Primarily, gamers generally go for wired mice because they
latency.
They respond better, the latency. That's the word. I couldn't quite get that out there. But the one thing I don't like about skeleton devices is dead skin. You have a look down the side of your rollerball on your mouse and you can see there's packed in there a couple of, I don't know how long you've had it, but a couple of years worth of dead skin. And you can clean it out every once in a while and feed it to your dog if you like. Or you can just leave it there and let it build up. And I just have a funny feeling that these the skeleton style devices. I do have a skeleton mouse sitting over there. I don't tend to use it very often because I'm fearful of dead skin building up in between. That's rank, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. I never really thought about that. I suppose it could. You just need to clean things now and again.
But who does that? Who actually goes... I know there's some people out there who have little hoovers and all that kind of stuff, but whenever it actually boils down to it, and in a daily life thing that we all tend to try to live and try to avoid, you end up having to... You don't have time to clean stuff like that. You can either vacuum the floor or you can sit there and clean your keyboard and mouse. No.
I noticed the time I notice this is when I'm doing a review of something and I take photographs of it, close-up photographs, and I suddenly realise, good grief, that's filthy. There's dust and grime. But sitting here looking at my keyboard, I can't see anything wrong with it. But yeah, take a microscope photograph of it and you realise what filth you live in.
Or you have a look at someone else's stuff like that and you're like, here, do you want to use my mouse? And you're like, oh. No thanks.
Anyway, I think it looks gorgeous and made of metal, and it's really, really light apparently because of the metal they've used. So it's no heavyweight, and was it 70 hours of battery power?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and probably just charges in something like, well, it probably has one of those fast charges where you plug it in for 5 minutes and you get 90% of your battery back, and then the other 10% is 2.5 hours after that.
Samsung.
All right, moving on to the Elgato Stream Deck.
Woohoo!
Ted, I'm going to let you handle this because I do have one sitting here in front of me, but for the life of me, I think I've pressed the button once in the last week.
Yeah, you need to be dedicated to this, and you need to work it out and make it work for you, and see it as a hobby. The news in this article is that Microsoft have got on board with Elgato, and you know that panel you've got in your settings on your computer that you assign the buttons to stuff and what have you, and on the right hand side you've got this bunch of companies that Elgato works with, that particularly gamers like OBS Studio and other companies that are largely to do with gaming plug into the system with. Well, the news here is that Elgato have done a deal with Microsoft whereby they're going to plug in Microsoft's Team stuff into that panel, so you can then easily assign buttons to do what you want to whilst you're in a team call. For example, you can toggle the camera, the mute, the record, the background blur, blah blah blah, and it's just making it simple to use, like it is for other plugins that already exist for the Stream Deck. If you don't use Microsoft Teams, then move along, I guess.
I'm looking for it now to see if it's there. I don't see it.
No, I think it's coming soon. Like a lot of things we talk about on this show, and then when they arrive, we've forgotten we've talked about them.
Very true. Very true. Well, even just the plugins are. I typed Skype into the plugins last week, I think, whenever we were doing the show, just to see if there was any sort of Skype functions I could do, like cut Ted off whenever he's talking crap.
Yeah, that would be the most worn out button, that would be.
Or a sound effect button whenever I just wanted to make it sound like you've passed wind. But there was nothing there. And just typing in Microsoft, not really anything too exciting there.
If you
type in Microsoft, it brings up Spotify.
Have you gone to you're in the store, are you?
Indeed.
Yeah. Unless now that Microsoft have done a deal with Elgato with Teams, they might do one with Skype as well. So they'll have their own section for Skype stuff into the bargain. But it is very kind of gaming orientated, isn't it? You must have realised that already. And content creator orientated. So, YouTube users and creators and all that claptrap. I mean, sorry, you're one of them, aren't you?
I'm just looking for this one that I installed there that was Microsoft. It was Advanced Controls or something like that, but I can't see it.
Oh.
I'll look for it some other time whenever people aren't bored by us. Right, okay. Next in the line of news is the Samsung... No, it's not. It's a Sony Xperia 1V for 5.
Yay, Mark
if
5.
you like. Which we should be seeing debuted at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona back at the end of the month, 27th of February kind of time. Is there anything exciting about this?
Well, the news here is the periscope camera, isn't it? That's what the renders are suggesting, that it's got this super duper periscope camera, so they'll be catching up with Samsung and others that are doing this, and they're hoping for a 10 times zoom, I guess. But apart from that, it's just, updated specs across the board. They've changed the camera island by the looks of it to some degree, made it a bit smaller, and moved the position of the where the LED flash is, but nothing very exciting really. It's all renders. MWC will tell us, but updated chipset to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is where everyone's at now. It'll be presumably they'll keep the rest of the good specs from the Mark IV, like the shutter button and the micro SD card, but we really don't know those kind of details yet. This is just a leak that someone has snuck out from somewhere, probably in a cafe somewhere, being some journalist paying a Sony employee to sneak one out at lunchtime.
It could be, yes, yeah. It's a nice looking device. It looks incredibly Sony.
Yeah.
I don't think they... Do they pay people to redesign their devices every year, or do they just sort of go, we did that 20 years ago, let's just carry on with it?
Good question. But yeah, I think the as I say, the news here is the 10. Well, we hope it'll be a 10 times zoom optical, which would make a big difference, I think, to see where we're going with that. We do have PSC does have a kind of thing with Sony PR, which is quite good. So Steve might get the Mark V in. We certainly have got the Mark IV at the moment.
Groovy. Okay. That'd be nice. Mm-hmm. All right. In the name of the game.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to hijack this and
go for it.
Complain about my Xbox wireless controller with Bluetooth. So, this week I asked the question of the MeWe group, which one to get. And one of the options that came up was the Xbox wireless controller. 49 quid it was, and I decided that I took on board the comments of everyone that suggested things, so thank you everyone for that. But I decided to settle, after much research and reviewing and looking into, the Xbox wireless controller. So it arrived for my testing with the Motorola Ready 4 thingy, and... imagine my despair when I plugged it in. No, I didn't plug it in. I hooked it up to Bluetooth to the Motorola phone, and only one of the games that I had installed at that time, of about 15 games, actually did anything. And that was Pinball, Microsoft Pinball thingy. Now, given that it's a Microsoft product, perhaps that's a good reason for it. Now, when I hooked it up to the TV with a cable, the Bluetooth thingy, the interface with the Ready 4 worked, so I could navigate with buttons and all the rest of it. That's fine. But when I fired up the only game that could work, the pinball game, there was this lag going on, this latency thing going on, and I thought, what's all that about? And of course, what it was it's a lag between the controller and the phone. Not the phone and the TV, but because you're using Bluetooth. So I thought, right, okay then, I'll use a cable instead. And so I unplugged the cable, which means you then can't connect the phone to the TV by HDMI, because you're using the USB-C ports for the controller. But anyway, it worked fairly much better with that combination then. I'm testing it still. Just this morning I was trying it with the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, so I'll continue with my trials, but at the moment that's what was confusing me a bit, as well as the fact that clearly all the games that I play, including all the Nintendo Mario type games and Angry Birds, just doesn't work with it. So I think that this whole experience is geared up for gamers who are doing car racing or first person shooters or stuff like that which I don't do. I'm more likely to play puzzle games or sports simulations, which are not car racing games. But I was quite encouraged that I got it working, and it did work, and I was trying to work out this latency problem, and I think I kind of got round that. But yeah, I'm still in testing phase. Any comments?
Well, do you want to try? There's loads of free trials about for the Xbox cloud gaming thing, and see how you fare with that.
Oh, okay.
So that might, thinking about what the amount of people who play games on their portable devices probably have something, not Stadia, but GeForce Now is probably not as popular, but the Xbox Cloud Gaming is available on those platforms, and I think that's where most of the gaming is at on Android and portable devices. I've always had a problem with various different controllers that I've used in finding games that are compatible with them. And I know you can go in and search Google Play Store for controller compatible.
Right.
And they'll come up. There's games like Dead Cells, which is infinitely enjoyable, and Hunt Down. Those two work with controllers, but they're the only two that I've ever really played. Okay. And I've always put out a plea asking what people are playing, unless it's Call of Duty, PUBG, Asphalt, and a couple of other very popular games. Other than that, I don't see games with controller compatibility in the Play Store terribly often.
Right.
They are very much touchscreen based games.
Right, that's interesting, because the reason I'm doing this is because I want to push Ready 4 and Dex in the gaming modes to see what it does. I mean, playing pinball with latency is just hopeless because you have to predict where the ball is. So to hit the flipper, you hit the flipper a millisecond before the ball gets there in order to hit it. So you can see why that wouldn't work with that particular game. But yeah, cabled up is different. I didn't think to search the Play Store for controller supported games, so I can do that. And I'll certainly have a look at the Xbox cloud thingy, although I am, as you know, a bit limited with bandwidth here, so I'm not sure how well that would work. But I can certainly go through the Play Store route and do what you said, yeah.
Right. I think there is even a section on Google Play that is for controller-based games. Okay. And it usually pops up on Android TV because that's where people would generally do their gaming.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yeah,
gaming. There's not. There's a gaming section on the PC version of Google Play. Chromebook, TV, tablet, or phone. So controller compatible games. Here we go.
Live on the show, folks. Well, Jim Foyle had mentioned
Dead Cells.
Sorry. Yeah, that's worth trying. Give that a go. But okay. Jim Foyle had put a post onto one of the Tech Addicts news articles to say that he'd done the Stadia Bluetooth conversion, much like I have as well now. And now he was trying to find something to use his controllers with. Right. And both of my controllers are both sitting beside me because I haven't actually gone and used them with anything. I think my NVIDIA Shield is one that I will be using it with, and maybe my tablet if I go away on holiday, or my Chromebook, maybe.
Yeah. So this Xbox one that I bought, presumably I could also use with my PC. I mean, that's probably what people do, isn't it? Lots of people, gamers, would do that with their PC. And presumably, if I plug in the cable, the USB-C cable, and connect it to my PC, there wouldn't be any latency there either.
I've got a funny feeling with the Xbox controller, of all the game controllers, I think it requires a particular cable.
Oh, right, okay.
I've looked at that in the past and gone, I can't believe it's made by Microsoft, but it's not initially compatible. Whereas a PlayStation 4 or 5 controller, I think you can just plug in with USB.
Right, I'll tell you what, I'll plug it in now. Live on the show, I've got a USB-C plug. I've plugged it in. All right, the controller's livened up. Let's see if I can actually do anything. What am I expecting it to do? Go around my home screen, maybe? Let's see.
Oh, I don't know. I think you'd need to boot a game, would you not?
Well, on Android, it would just work in the system. So you can use the controls to navigate around the home screen. But no, it's not doing that. But it did liven up. It has acknowledged its existence. But anyway, I'll play with that, yeah.
Okay. I'm just having a quick Google now. Now you can use it via Bluetooth. How to connect here. Maybe they have changed, and it was just years ago whenever I first checked that.
Right.
There was something you need, or it could be just Xbox 360 controllers or something like that are not compatible with Windows. But it's some weird thing in history that happened one day.
Right. Well.
But yes, keep working at it and let us know.
It's quite interesting.
For science.
My interest really was to do with Android, but yeah, I'm quite happy to expand it out and see what I can find. So watch this space.
Yeah. Well, I put this in because I just wanted to I wanted to talk about it because it's something that I've been looking into over the last wee while. It's not. I suppose it is a wee bit interesting because it could turn out to be. I hope it turns out to be a heroic story of wonder and excitement. But there's a game called The Day Before, and it's received a number of different trailers over the last years actually, and it does look incredibly good. It's a big zombie game where there's a huge city and sprawling city, and you get to go out and try and survive in it, a bit like DayZ or The Last of Us. Those sorts of things sort of smashed together, and it's really got people talking. But it's being talked about in a very negative way quite recently because a lot of the promises of the company that are behind it, whose name I can't quite find, Fantastic, I think it's called, Fantastic without an A in the fan. They're a company who've made a couple of games in the past, but a wee bit of sort of abandonware that they've done things and they've kind of left it and moved on to something else. But they seem to have pulled together all the resources and they've put together a few trailers for a game that they have coming out this year. And it's all on the new Unreal Engine, and they used that as a bit of a delay. They had Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. I'm saying this from a pessimistic point of view because the most recent stories are that this is a game that doesn't actually exist, and it's highly polished render videos or videos that have been orchestrated in order to gain a reaction, and they're actually selling their other products because they've put together some app that's in the App Store I don't want to give any time to, because it might all be nonsense. It's weird. It's really strange, and I don't want to agree with the whole of the internet who are saying this game doesn't exist and it's all a big farce. But then I want to believe that the game does exist and it's going to come out. And even if it comes out in a sort of somewhat limited, ambitious style, they should be given the opportunity to be able to. You know, it's a small team from Korea who are doing this, and they might push out a game that isn't quite as well realised as they'd hoped. But if you look at a game like something like No Man's Sky, whenever it arrived, it was laughed at, it was ridiculed, because it didn't deliver any of the promises that it put out. But looking at it now, it is one of the finest games that you can go out and buy. It's absolutely jam-packed full of features. I ended up buying that game for something like £7 on Steam because it was just reduced. It wasn't being sold. People weren't buying it even, that's what I mean. But now I got it for that price, but it's one of the biggest games that I have, and I'm actually looking at it going, oh, I don't want to get into that because it's so big. It's overwhelming, the amount of features that they've packed in. And I'm really hoping that the day before is going to be something along those lines, because there's so much hate going on at the moment on the internet that this game is failing all of its deadlines. It's not managing it, and it's not the footage. They're analysing it so closely that they're destined to fail because the game isn't going to live up to anyone's expectations right now. It's a weird one to actually talk about because there's no opinion that is right at the moment because it is a small team. And they might just be sort of collapsing under the pressure of the internet right now, and I really feel quite bad for them. But at the same time, it could be a small team who have an ulterior motive that's putting together this nefarious plan to try and sell another application through this big game. But recently, the most recent update is that there is a new 10-minute footage trailer that actually shows off a large amount of footage of the game. It's not action-packed. I think you see something like 4 zombies throughout it, but it allows you to envision the world, or see the world that they have envisioned. And it's worth checking out because I've got it on my watch list just to see what happens here, because it could be an exceptionally successful ruse or fabrication. But I still, part of my heart just hopes that this is a small team who are dealing with putting out a AAA game when the last game they handled was a C game on Android or something like that. That might have just been a victim of the wrath of the internet. Have you ever heard of it, or have you watched anything to do with it?
Well, while you've been talking, though, I've been trying to find that 10-minute thingy, and because of my bandwidth, I won't dip into it now. But I put a link there into a Twitter account that is linking out to it. So I'll look at it after the show and see what you're talking about. I've never heard of it, but there's a community behind it, isn't there? And they're linking out to various, Facebook and Instagram, and it looks like it's quite serious to me. I'm not sure if it is a ruse or whatever, but yeah, it looks like someone's serious about it.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of knowing enough about it. Because I've watched a few YouTube videos of people who are just they're breaking every trailer that they release down and looking at things like, say, muzzle fire and going, that muzzle fire isn't as beautiful as the rest of the game would lead you to believe. It's just an image that's stuck in there, and it should be functioning like this muzzle fire, and then referencing a Call of Duty game. It's like, yeah, but Call of Duty is a $50 million game. This is 5 guys out in Korea hoping for the best. Yeah. They're designing all these things and bringing them into Unreal and trying to put together a game that looks good and something that you'll want to buy. So it's a difficult one, and I'd say that if anyone has a passing interest in gaming, that they should really check this out. They probably already know about it if they do, but it's something that it could be a victim of its own ambition, and I don't know what to believe. It's a bizarre one. I just wanted to throw it in just to bring people's attention to it a wee bit, because it does look quite good. That 10-minute trailer looks interesting. It's something I would like to play.
I'll have a look at it after the show.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll move on then to flop your top button app, because we've got Twitter to talk about, and Twitter's API is going to be it's going to have a paid basic tier for app developers to be able to access it to carry on with their Twitter clients, which is
terrible,
really quite nasty, isn't it?
It's just so they can sell advertising, isn't it? So they can put adverts. They can force everyone that doesn't want to pay to give them money for an API, which no doubt their apps will not have adverts in them. Well, they might do as well, I suppose. But they're forcing everyone into the main channel where Twitter can then serve up adverts to everyone, or get money from a developer instead. Yeah, it's all kind of cutthroat advertising stuff, which is a bit sad, I suppose. I don't know what's going to happen to Twitter, really. It kind of leaps and bounds between stories in the tech press about loan payments not being made and charging for this and blue badges for that and blah, blah, blah. And one minute you think it's going to all collapse around their ears, and the next minute you think, well, maybe not. Perhaps they are making a go of this. I don't know.
Yeah, I've just actually made that connection. Blue badges. Here in the UK, for a disability, you get a blue badge,
Yes.
and you display it in your car to use a disability parking space. I'd never actually thought of that before.
No. I think they're not called blue badges, are they? They're called blue ticks. Blue something.
That's right, yeah.
I'm not really a Twitter user much.
No, I hadn't thought of that before. Interesting. All right. Well, yeah, it'll be, again, it's a dumpster fire, is old Twitter at the moment. And I think I'm gradually moving toward Mastodon as a better social network to be on. It does seem to be. It's got plenty of opportunity to mess up in the future.
Yeah.
And I think most people are on there now that should be. But I think most of the conversation is still on Twitter. But I'm just not interacting as much with it anymore.
You just don't know which way to turn.
No,
have you been able to, with Mastodon, have you been able to automate, like you can with your announcements, your blog, your WordPress into Mastodon, like you can with Twitter?
Yeah, there's a plugin you can do, but it's not fully featured, so you have to go in and tinker with it whenever you do.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't do images and stuff.
Right.
So we'll play with it. I imagine it'll get better as time goes on, as Mastodon becomes the number one social network that people are on.
Yeah.
In 20 years. Okay, so China's biggest search engine is to launch a chat GPT rival in March. And for those who don't know, the chat GPT is this AI conversation thing that you can use to write stuff for you. What's China doing here?
Well, they're just getting in on the action, by the looks of it, by creating their own client, an OpenAI client, which is going to replace. They don't want to left behind, because ChatGPT is the thing of the moment, and everyone's getting on board. Microsoft have invested billions of dollars in it. Google are very soon going to announce what they're doing with it, even though they've teased that before. They've got the OI conference in May, and they're going to be, no doubt, bringing something to that's going to keep up with everyone else. What's interesting here is that how it's changing the landscape of search, and everyone is kind of worried about this, including particularly Google, who have made their whole business model on search, and then suddenly there's something else out there. It'll be interesting to see if they keep up with it and are able to do it. But this story, is about Baidu, which is the Chinese search engine, equivalent to Google, if you like, for China. And they've announced that they've got their company's systems on it, and the whole learning thing there on. I'm waffling now. Your turn.
Actually, I'm looking at the next story because I think it's more vastly more interesting.
Well, I think it is fascinating that that it's changing the landscape of search and how that all works. And search has been pretty, the same for quite a while now. In fact, while we're doing that, we might as well leap forward 2 stories and talk about Yahoo, which apparently is making a return to search. So they're going to get in on the action just as ChatGPT takes over. According to a job listing which Yahoo have posted, they're looking for a principal product manager for Yahoo Search, and teasing out on their Twitter client that they're back in the game, and saying Yahoo Search is still here. We told you, and it's coming back. So watch out. And they're recruiting, talent to actually make that all happen. I don't know unless they're getting on board with ChatGPT. What chance do they stand, really?
Yeah, I don't really think it's the company that decides that they're back. I think it's the customer that decides whether or not they're back. Yeah. And I'm seeing there's was it Greg Sterling has done a vote thing, a poll, that's the one, to say Yahoo is planning a relaunch search. Is there a chance to revive it? And the options were nope, dead on arrival. Depends on the UI, user interface, that's the one, or UX. Yep. And yes, it's time. And nope, dead on arrival beat the what was the biggest outcome. There we go, with 43% of votes. It's an interesting one.
Depends on how good the talent is, I suppose, doesn't it? If they appoint someone to that job who has been at the helm at, for example, Google and search from the beginning, then they could bring ideas that might make it happen. Don't know.
Well, people still rely on Google, despite the fact that it's one of the worst search engines you can use to find whatever it is you're looking for. And there's no shortage of companies who are stepping in, going, let's take back the search and show you stuff that you are looking for. DuckDuckGo has its search engine, which is rubbish. I'm going to say that it does search a bit, but if you want to find stuff, you're not going to use that. The way to use Google is you search for what you're looking for, and you go to page 4. And that'll be, where you actually start turning up results as opposed to sponsored results or people who have paid to be in your search ahead of it. And also you get rid of all the shopping crap. If you're researching something, the internet's one of the worst places you can go to try and do your research, because search giants just don't do that anymore. They're giants because they take backhanders to put stuff in at the front of it. If Yahoo are looking to make a big splash back in search, then they need to actually provide you with exactly what you're looking for, and not just a last ditch attempt to try to get people to pay them to put stuff in search facilities.
Yeah.
The internet used to be great. You just jump on, bring up Google, type in what you wanted, and it would display the information. We've got so far away from that. It's scary. You go in, you hit Google, you have to cycle through all the places that you don't actually want to see. If you're searching for GoldenEye, just randomly, you have to get past all the places that are selling you GoldenEye to stream, to watch, to play or whatever, and then eventually you get to a news article on page 3 or 4, and then you click on that, and then you have to click through the EU information thing on what cookies can be downloaded to see the article, and then realize, no, this isn't quite what I'm looking for. So that it takes you an awful lot longer than what the web was originally set up to be.
I think I might apply. I'm going to apply for that job. I reckon I could do it. It's just people getting greedy, isn't it? Corporations getting greedy, and the shareholders just wanting more return on their investment. Blah blah blah. It's the usual thing. It's capitalism, and it gets in the way of what used to be, as you say, a much more pure system, which. They've got past. They made that all happen. It'll be interesting to see, going back to ChatGPT, what happens in that respect with these tools that are coming along, and whether it gets blighted with the same machete.
Yeah. Well, what was the last thing you used Yahoo for? Can you remember?
No, I can't. Oh, no, I can't.
I think outside of the odd news story that is arrived from Yahoo, that initially you've gone, I don't believe that. It's Yahoo. And perhaps an old email account that maybe you've tried to revive to see if there's something in it that you maybe had whenever you were a teenager.
Yeah. Yahoo were big though, weren't they? Back in the day, they were leading one of the leading kind of players. Who knows? They might just come back.
Well, I'm going to do that now. Right. What was my old email address?
What was that woman?
Yahoo.
Famously, that woman that left Yahoo and it all fell apart. I can't remember her name now. That woman. She was the figurehead of Yahoo, and some years ago now she jumped ship. This is riveting podcasting, isn't it?
I can't remember. I'm trying to sign into an old Yahoo account that I suddenly remembered that I had, but my new email address isn't attached to it. I think it was one of the first email addresses I had.
Right.
There was Yahoo and there was Hotmail.
AOL.
I can't remember which I had first.
AOL was mine.
Steer clear of AOL. I never wanted to pay their subscription fees. But yeah,
I never paid anything. Get out of it.
Well, we'll see. Everyone try and sign into your old Yahoo email account and see what's in there.
Oh, here it is. It's Marissa Mayer.
Oh.
So she had gone from Google to Yahoo to try and rescue them. I can't remember when, though. It was some years ago, and then it all fell apart again, I think. Do you not remember her?
Nope.
Okay. Forget I mentioned that then. Carry on.
Ugh. Oh, no, don't do that.
What?
Do you want to sign up for a new account at Yahoo? No, do not want to do that. Good grief. Right. Windows 11 might be getting a new file system. Now, you've probably heard of FAT, and you've probably heard of FAT32, and there's a good chance you've heard of NTFS. Windows currently operates under the NT file system, which is NTFS. It's not entirely compatible with other things, like if you were to format a memory stick or whatever with NTFS and try to stick it into your PlayStation or Android device, it might have a bit of a hard time reading it. And it'll ask you to format it to something that's a wee bit more compatible with Linux, like FAT32 or FAT. NTFS it lasted for a good long while, and it's still currently in use across Windows 10 and 11. But they're looking to maybe move on to REFS, which stands for Resilient File System, and it's better than NTFS in many ways. It includes storage, including storage and future innovations. NTFS supports a maximum of 256 terabytes, so Ted, you should be able to use it with all your backups. It can, or no, NTFS is
that's the existing one, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the new one can do up to 35 petabytes,
wow,
which is quite a lot. I don't think they do memory cards in a petabyte yet, but one day I imagine they probably will. So they're preparing for that, which sounds, I'm sure in a year's time it'll sound incredibly dated. I'll probably have petabytes by then, given how fast things get updated. Yeah.
Apparently this is already being used at server level. Which, I mean, I've never heard of it, but they're suggesting that this could be rolling out to, users. The advantages for enterprise include that it converts expensive physical file copy operations to quick logical ones, whatever that means. I'm a bit out of my depth here, you may have realised. But it looks like it will be better, more robust, faster, better encrypted, blah, 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 all the usual claims about something new, and more like the server-based one. It reminds me of Windows 2000 and the whole kind of, that's the server one, and everyone else gets the crappy ME edition or something. But yeah, I don't really know much more about this than that.
Well, one of the interesting things is that the resilient file system actually debuted with Windows Server 2012.
Oh.
And it's been around for 11 years now.
Oh,
no,
right.
Wait, 13 years. That's the way maths work, isn't it? No, 11 years. Yeah.
Right.
But by comparison, NTFS has been around for more than 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Which is crazy to think. We have this cutting-edge technology that we have access to with SSDs and all that, and they've all been running 30-year-old file system structures when you're using Microsoft Windows.
Wow.
So, yeah, even if it's, 11 years old now, it's still a breath of fresh air.
I think it will complicate things for the ordinary user if this is rolled out, because already, like you described earlier, if you're using your micro SD card in a phone, you quite often have to, Windows will say to you, you need to format this card, or you put it in your phone and it says, I can't read this, and then you have this 4 gigabyte limit on file sizes, don't you? Any one single file can't be more than 4 gigabytes, or it won't read it on a phone, and it all gets very complicated. This is just going to complicate it even more, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but I do think it's something that we're probably not going to see for a good long while, especially rolled out by default. So it'll probably be 30 years old by the time we're talking about, Windows 95, because we've reached there, or no, they won't call it 95, they skipped out Windows 9, because that was too complicated. Windows 63 will be coming with REFS.
Right then, we'll come back to that one in 30 years.
55 years.
Or 55 years.
In which case, I'll be dead.
Well, I'll be dead first.
Well, you never know. It might be succeeded by my son. Austin Miles could be on here. Oh, dear.
Well, in 55 years, even he'll be knocking on.
He'll be
older than me now.
Yeah, he'll be 63.
There you go. I'll rest my case.
No, wait. No, he's 11 now. Flipping heck. I go with my Mars again. 66.
Right.
In 55 years. Yeah, okay. He'll be retiring soon.
Yeah.
And
Scary.
I'll be well dead.
Very scary.
That's a nice thought. Right, okay, so Chrome OS. What are you going to tell us about Chrome OS?
Well, Microsoft have done the deal with Stream Deck, as described earlier. They've also done a deal with Chrome OS by the looks of it, and they're going to be working better together with them by adding OneDrive to the Files app. A very simple change, but they've got in bed with them. What do you mean again?
I remember Chrome OS having the ability to mount cloud storage, and I used to be able to put pCloud and OneDrive in the Files app.
Really? Why is this a story then?
Well, because it went away for a long time and now it's back.
Oh, I see. They've rejuvenated it, have they?
Yeah.
That's really odd, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, so the simple truth here is that you can, again, brackets, close brackets, add OneDrive to your Files app, and it's supposed to work more slinkily and better with Microsoft 365, and jumping in and out of Microsoft 365 products will make it easier on a Chromebook or any device using Chrome OS by the Files app. The second story is about Chrome OS about to receive to the Android 13 style themed icons, which will be nice. So looking at your dock across the bottom of your Chromebook, you'll see those themed icons that you see on Pixel phones and on Samsung phones now, if you choose to use them, as part of the Material U redesign. it's also coming to Chrome OS. We spoke about that before, but not about the themed icons, and there is evidence to say that that is on its way now. And lastly, Acer's newest Chromebooks are built to be classroom ready. And what I couldn't work out from this story was whether it's going to be made available to the public or just to the education sector and classrooms. I'm still not very sure, but there's a new raft of devices which Acer have put out, and they look really lovely. They look really robust. I know everyone these days are going for thin and stealth-like and slim, but actually these monsters look as though you can drop them and kick them about and they'll just survive. The flagship of the range is the Vero 712 with an i3 chipset or a Pentium Gold or a Celeron, so there's choices on that. There's 4 or 8 gigs of RAM, there's 128 gigs of storage, but there is a smaller 32 or a 64, stereo speakers, dual microphones, blah blah blah, and 2 USB-C ports, 1 USB-A port, and a 3.5mm headphone socket. But the news really here is about the classroom robustness of it, and you can see from the photographs of these devices that they're solid, they're thick, they're fat. There are different size versions of it you can get. The flagship is 14-inch, but there's also a 12-inch. Can you see anything from that story that would suggest that the public can buy them, or do you think it's just going to be locked down to educational channels?
I don't know. I don't think that they really do that, especially here in the UK. I think whenever it comes in, it'll be thrown out by whatever retailers they can get to stock it.
Okay. In that case, I might have one.
Really?
Yeah, because I really like the robustness of it. I like the fact that it's not going to break, and it's got 8 years of updates guaranteed, as we know with Chromebooks. And my Pixelbook next year is going to come to end of life, and so if I was choosing a new Chromebook now, I get the i3 one. It'll work really well. 8 gigs of RAM, 128. Why are you sounding surprised?
Why don't you just get a regular Chromebook and stick some blue tack in the corners?
I like robust things, as is proved by my choices of things like the Nokia XR20 phone.
Do you drop? When was the last time you dropped a laptop or a Chromebook?
Point taken.
Mm-hmm.
But kids will break them.
How many kids do you have?
If these are in a
don't answer that, please.
If these are in a classroom, and they'll get knocked off of tables and dented and scratched.
But you're not in a classroom. Very often.
Move away from me wanting one of these, right?
But you said you wanted
one.
Well,
all right, then.
Which is an important fact.
Forget the fact that I said that. Let's go back to the story. Oh, look, there's a price there. It's $429. $520. It's not cheap, is it? Blimey.
No, because it's got that tough robustness. It's got, like, they've put an extra layer of plastic and blue tack in the.
I'm surprised at you not liking robust things. I thought you did.
No, it's absolutely fine for the classroom. It's not fine for you, Ted. There's better options. Why would you have one of these? Pay a little bit more for robustness whenever you haven't dropped a laptop since you were 7.
Because I want one.
Right.
Leave me alone.
Okay. Well,
he's picking on me.
Mom! All right, we'll move into Harkback, where I've picked a little device that's worth talking about. And it was robust as well. You could take it with you too.
Doesn't look very robust.
It had a handle. This, folks, is the Macintosh SE. And I'm going to go for an iconic little device here because I think a lot of people will have had these or at least experienced one at least once in their life. I never had one. However, I had a friend who did, and I got to play with it every now and again. And I quite liked it because there were 2 games he had, and I bought them both actually quite recently, and they're not quite as good as I remember them. But one of them was called Manhole, and the other was called Cosmic Osmo, and they were like they were a bit like Myst if you know those games where they were nicely drawn out, rendered pictures, and you'd click on things and interact with them, and then you would gradually follow them on a little adventure through them. But that got me thinking that the actual whole device was a bit iconic, a bit interesting, and I thought we could talk about it a wee bit on here. Because the SE part of it, the Macintosh SE, it wasn't known quite so well as the Apple Mac or anything back then. It was just called the Macintosh. And it was this cute little Vectrex style device, if you know that, that looked, it was a little lump of squarish plastic or rectangular plastic with a wee screen in it and a disk drive at the front. It was white, it had a handle, and we'll come to that. The SE came from the fact that it was called System Expansion. That's what the SE stood for, because you could buy expansions to this. And I've actually linked... No, I haven't. I thought I did. I thought I had linked to a whole list of all the expansions. I will find it, and I will link it to, because there was a huge amount over on the wiki. You could do things like put graphic accelerators and things like that into it, a bit like you could on a PC, because PCs were more locked down back then, and Apple was a wee bit more open. And it's amazing how times have changed.
Irony.
Yes, there were two slots. You could have two disk drives, or you could have one floppy and one hard disk drive. And it was I think it was a dual or a double density disk drive. It wasn't a high density disk at the time the ones I'm talking about, and it had a whopping 1 megabyte of RAM, which was quite. It ran. It would work then. It had a little screen on it as well. It had a carrying handle as well. But crucially, around the back, it had what we first experienced was the Apple desktop bus that you could plug the keyboard and mouse into. And they were a bit like a PS2 connector that would communicate with peripherals. It had a SCSI port in the back as well for plugging in other hard drives or printers and things like that, which was a sort of universal standard at the time. Not quite universal standard, but it was one of the more recognised ones. And the wee screen on the front was a 9-inch screen, and it was colour screen as well. I think it was a limited colour palette, but I can't remember what it was that didn't quite tot up on PC scale of CGA and EGA and VGA as you would have had around then. But it was a 512 by 342 resolution, which is a bit of a funny resolution, but it was a funny little screen. It had 1-bit graphics that you could utilise, and it had a full graphical user interface, which was a bit of a first. We had Windows 1 and Windows 2 back then, before Windows 3 and 3.1 sort of monopolised the PC side of things, but Apple was in there using their little GUI. That I can't remember what the name of the operating system was, because I got more taken away with the hardware that was inside of it, because it ran on the Motorola 68000, which was an 8 megahertz chip that you could actually find in a number of strange places. It was a really, really popular chip that went on to be, you could find it in the Atari Jaguar. Which it was used for a support chip as well, so it could sort of offload some of the other tasks onto it. The Sega Genesis had one inside it as well, and the Sega CD had one, and the SNK Neo Geo ran on it, which was big. The Sega System 16, which was one of their early consoles before the Master System, it would run on it too. And it was just a good, strong processor from 1982 that would find its way into various different things, and it didn't just die out as a main processor. It would become a lesser processor, like the Sega Saturn used it for its sound coprocessor. So it continued its life after being the main processor in the Apple Mac or the Macintosh SE. It originally actually didn't come with a keyboard. You had to purchase it separately, which I thought was a really interesting fact. It would come with a mouse, but not the keyboard. I wonder if that was maybe Macintosh back in the day, or Apple back in the day, trying to move things away from using a keyboard. And they might have had aspirations to not need a keyboard, and it would be provided if you wanted one, but because of the GUI that was running on the screen, were they actually hoping that, you never know, the mouse might be the way forward, and some sort of typing would come from maybe voice or from some other interaction, maybe a touch screen. They might have had designs to do that at the time. I thought that was a really interesting idea, that the keyboard wasn't a standard peripheral. Strange that. The expansion packs, and I've got the list there in the show notes now, allowed you to be able to put in a whole rake of other things like graphic accelerators and stuff like that. Not that the computer itself was going to be some sort of be all and end all for gaming and stuff like that, but for various different businesses, they'd be able to bring in stuff, because CAD would be something that would suddenly become an important feature, and the Apple Macintosh really just sort of carried that forward. They knew from the Macintosh 2 and things like that had come before it. Actually, I think it was released at the same time as this, maybe. Can't quite remember. I've got my timelines all sort of a bit fuzzy, but this was around about 1987. I think the Macintosh 2 was already out by then. They had sort of tested the waters, and they knew what was coming in. So they were looking to design this device to be a little terminal that people could sit down and work at, and with a colour screen, CAD could probably do it. And in its original form, might not be able to support those sort of higher graphic needs, but you could get graphic accelerators and bigger hard disks and things like that could go into it, because you could expand it, despite the fact that it was such a small little dinky device.
If you scroll,
Did you ever have one?
If you scroll down on that page you've linked to, there's a timeline in there which might help you with your question about what happened when. Does that help?
The Apple II was... the Apple IIe, and then the Macintosh 2, and the SE came in. It doesn't quite show which came first, the Macintosh 2 or the SE, but it's probably around that time. Anyway, right. I wasn't talking about the Macintosh 2. I was talking about the SE.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have one of these? I'm sure you've got to have been somewhere where you've used one, Steve.
I think I've seen them in Dixon's windows at some point. But I just was never in the Apple world, really, apart from a foray into having an iMac at one time to try it out, which didn't last very long at all. I just was not in the Apple world at all. Back in 1986 to 1988, I was just, my head was stuck in PCs. At work, we had these two XT machines, and with floppy disks, and very similar time space as this, and I was just using them and learning BBC language and just getting stuck into that. Apple was for some other people at that time, and still is, I might add. But also there's the cost factor, isn't there? They're saying that this cost $4,000 on release, and there's one for $3,000. But even so, you'd have to be having serious money. Even back in those days, Apple were kind of caning it in terms of charging huge amounts of money for their stuff, weren't they? But no, I'm afraid I can't have this discussion with you. You said... I had a look at some screenshots in Google while you were talking, and you said that it was colour screen, but actually you said that the palette was quite small. It looks to me as though it's very small. It's like just about shades of grey and some blue and stuff. So I don't know how you remember that exactly, but it doesn't look very colour to me.
No, like yourself, I was more into PC, so I understood the CGA 4-color and the EGA enhanced palette and things like that came along. And well, I was actually with Amstrad, so they had a wee bit of a weird kind of graphics thing going on, where various different models ran like monochrome or green screen, and then there was Hercules and Tandy and stuff like that. So some things would be compatible with them, and not others. But Macintosh's color palette, I don't know enough about it to be able to comment where their graphics cards were, and if the graphic accelerators would actually add more colors to that palette. But no, the SE was highly desirable because the Plus and the Macintosh, the other one that came before it, had been really successful, and people had really noted how this little computer could manage to do quite a lot. And I think they were kind of black and white back then, or monochrome, but they were still fairly expensive. But the SE arrived, and it was the big upgrade that everybody wanted, even though it ran on the same CPU as the SE. It had the ability to take on new hardware, and you could expand it and make it bigger. And I think Apple and Macintosh were noticing what PCs were able to do, and trying to incorporate that into their own configuration devices, so that you could go out and you could have, without having to go to some sort of specialist to say, I need a computer that can do this, a terminal that can do this. You could go and buy this and then be able to add the bits yourself, or well, at least get one of their technicians to do it for you, to put in stuff, because they would go directly into the motherboard. It wasn't sort of a case of you would slot anything into it. It was more of a scientific or technological process to be able to upgrade these and put in the required hardware expansions. So you would have to get a professional to do that, but it allowed companies to be able to have a specific line, or a home user to have a specific level of technology available to them. But yeah, they were just iconic. Very and they cute. Looked good, and I know people pay big money for them now because they are so iconic.
Very cute.
They're beautiful, lovely computers.
And not at all robust. I was looking down at the inside the Macintosh SE picture at the bottom of that page. You can see how unrobust it is. You can imagine dropping that.
Yeah.
It would be in a million pieces, I reckon.
Heck, even touching one of those capacitors, given the amount of charge that it would hold to do that CRT, probably give you a nasty shock.
It's ever so cute, though. I do agree. It's a nice looking. But then, Apple design has always been cute and nice, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Very nice.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Back then. No, they were lovely. I remember playing those games and going around to my friend's house, and it's like, please. And he's like, no, my dad's working on it. It's like, oh, no, it's Saturday. What's he doing working on Saturday?
Yeah, selfish git.
Yeah, totally. Right. Bargain basement. Bargainy stuff. We're going to start with me actually this time, and this is over on Amazon. They are currently doing the Seagate expansion. It's a desktop external hard drive with a number of letters and numbers behind it. It's a 6 terabyte 3.5 inch drive with a USB 3 that you can hook up and do all your backing up to, and they've dropped it in price from £120 down to £99.99p. If you suddenly decide you don't want to use Amazon, you can actually get this deal from Argos as well, I noticed. So it must be a Seagate thing to try and maybe clear out some of their older hard drives or whatever, but it's good for backing up or for media storage.
Seagate is the company that made the drive in the iMac that I spoke about just now that went tits up, and I had to get it repaired, and they put another one in it.
Yeah, it's one company. I've had a number of Seagate drives over the years. There was Seagate, Mac Store, and Western Digital, and I don't think any of my Seagates survived, but they're still alive today because they do make good products.
Yeah.
Somewhere you just get a bad batch, and that can happen anywhere.
Yeah, I suppose so. The 16 terabyte version, which is comparable to the Western Digital one that I bought, is £258. So that's certainly cheaper than the Western Digital drive one. Well, not what I paid, but the proper price. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just actually noticing the 8 terabytes down to 130, which is a saving of 45%, which is even more. But you might not need that. 6 terabytes is nice for most.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Right, okay. Buy a Samsung TV and get a Galaxy Z Fold 4 or Galaxy S23 for free. And I did check this morning, and this thing is still going on. So if you click through to the Sam Mobile story, and then click through to the deal, it is still there. Buy a TV and get a free, and the Z Fold 4 is a lot of money. So this TV, how much is a TV?
They're saying from £600 here.
Can't be right, can it? There's one for 1,600 quid. There's a TV there, and
bargain.
Yeah,
wow.
And you get a free fold, which you could flog. You can make a fortune on this, I reckon. Oh no, hang on a minute.
Well, I suppose
hang on a minute.
If you're looking for a 4K TV,
if you click through, it applies to two TVs. One of them is $4,000, and one of them's $3,000. So okay, you'd have to want the TV anyway. But then you could probably flog the phone for about 1,200 quid, and it will offset the cost. Anyway, that just caught my eye.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. If people are generally looking to upgrade to 4K, I was even considering it myself earlier on for my TV that's up here, which is still only a 1080p, and I've been meaning to get a 4K up here, but I'm not going to spend $4,000 to be able to get a deal like this right now. Over on Amazon.co.uk, it usually happens whenever Samsung have a wee bit of an announcement. They reduce some of their prices. You can get the Apple Watch Series 8, and it's down in price from £449 to £399. And I think that's in a bunch of different colours. It's the 45mm version. Just checking some of the other colours, because initially, it's the white, silver, red is $399 as well. So yeah, it should be most of the ones, and that's the GPS version as well, which has your fitness tracker and blood and oxygen air stuff analyzer there too.
I didn't know there was a Series 8. I thought we were on 7.
Well, no, this is the Series 8.
Yeah, and it's not the Ultra or the Ultimate or whatever it's called. No. So very nice. Save 50 quid. No problem. We mentioned the Find X6 Pro earlier. Well, if you fancy taking a back seat on that, you could buy the Oppo Find X5 Pro at the moment. 256GB version, 12 gigs of RAM, reduced from 1,049 quid to 799. That's a nice little bargain too.
It is, absolutely. That's 25% off or thereabouts.
Indeed. But it is, with the new one coming, it will soon be last year's model. Not that that really matters. Oppo have got a commitment with their Find devices for 3 OS updates and 4 years of security. Only on the Find badge devices, though. So you do get quite good support with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good find. Nice one.
Good find.
Next up is the Ugreen USB Type-C hub HDMI. Now, this is a bit of a range of them, but I've put in the one that I found was the most exciting of the bunch. This is an HDMI 4K 60Hz 6-in-1 multi-port adapter with a USB Type-C hub type thing. It's got 3 USB ports. It's got an SD TF card reader. And it's compatible with Mac, iPad, PC, XPS, Surface, all that kind of caper. And it's down in price because it's normally $29.99, and it's down 30. There's a 30% off voucher on Amazon at this time, which takes it down to £209, £20 and 99p. There are other versions of it on there which have this 30% off as well, including one that has the 100-watt power delivery. But
whoa,
their options are a wee bit scattered. So if you go for that 100-watt power delivery, it doesn't have an SD card slot on it, and it doesn't have 3.5mm audio jack. Whereas some of the other ones do. Actually, none of them have 3.5mm audio jack. I don't know why that's in there. Bizarre. Oh, maybe. Oh, you can scroll across. Oh, there's even more. Wow. There's one that the 10-in-1. How much is the 10-in-1 down to? It's got 15% off, so it's £52 down to 15% less than that, which is an amount.
Ugreen stuff is quite nice, isn't it? They're growing in my estimation, catching up with Anker. I think it's quite nice that the card slots are in the end of this one. Usually at the end you get an HDMI or an Ethernet or something, but yeah, card slots in the end. That's quite nice.
Yeah, it's a good travel buddy, that, actually, and I'm really quite interested in this the USB 10-in-1 at £52. So if I was to put the 15% voucher on that and add it to the basket, what does it show up as? Go to basket. And it's still $52.99. I have to order it to see the total price, which I'm not going to do.
Mad.
Totally.
Right. Okay. We'll come back to dongles in a minute, but for now, just to mention that it doesn't quite really qualify for bargain basement, but I'll say it anyway because on the Amazon exclusive for the S23, S23 Plus, and S23 Ultra. For me, probably not for you, but for some people, you'll get the option to pay for your device over 12 months. Releasing on the 13th of February, which means you'll get it that day, delivered by Amazon. And yeah, the baby one is 12 times 70 quid. The Plus version is 12 times 87 quid. And the Ultra is 12 times 104 quid. So, yeah, expensive items on release, of course. And you're much better to wait until they come down a bit. But if you want to spread the payments, then that's the way to do it. Are you seeing any of those?
Hang on, I'm just opening up now. I was £45 was that Ugreen thing. No
12 payments. So yeah, some people will, some people won't. Obviously, depending.
But I have one going at the moment, so
yeah, it all depends.
I think I've still got another 3 months to go on that, so I'll see it then.
Yep.
Nice. It's good to get a little bit of money off those, especially now. Okay. USB Type-C cables. I bought a bunch a while ago, and I don't know where they've gone. I think they must evaporate. It's possible. The TOPK, T-O-P-K, USB-C to USB-C charger cables. There's a 2-metre 2-pack available for £5 and 9p.
Wow.
Now, I thought that was a pretty good deal because I had a look at a rival Anker version, which was, I think it was £13 for 1.8 metres, which I guess you could round up to 2 metres. But it just looked like a nice enough little collection of 2 cables.
It does. I like the 60-watt power delivery support as well, because that means you can use it with certain chargers. Well, not my 100-watt one, but certainly a lot of them, and that's a good-looking cable. £5 for 2, and 2 metres long. So many of these cables are 1 metre long, and that's 2 metres. Very good.
Well, it was £7. It's 27% off in the deal at the moment. But if you were to buy 4 of them, which actually means you buy 8 cables, you get an additional 5% off the top again.
Wow. Very good. That's nice. I wish I needed some.
Christmas presents.
Yeah. Give them away to other people. Okay, the last one is back to what you were just talking about with your Ugreen hub. And it's an Anker kind of adapter stroke hub. This one's more expensive. It's got more about it. It has got 100-watt pass-through power delivery, but it's 8-in-1 USB-C. It's half price from 99 quid to 54 quid. And it's got all sorts of adapters and HDMIs and 4K support and USB 3 ports and SD and micro SD and blah blah blah. And yes, it is significantly more than your £20.99 for the other one, but I think it's much more capable, and it is half price, and it's Anker, and I really like it. So that's an option for you.
Yeah, that's a terrific deal actually. It looks like a good size too.
Yeah.
Nicely pocketable, but also not too flimsy.
Quite show.
Flimsy. Right, okay. Well, that about brings us to the end, because it's 2 hours we've been nattering now.
What?
So if you want to get in touch with us, you can by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.com. You can also find us on Twitter as well, at TechAddictsUK. You can find me on Twitter too, at Gareth Miles, GarethMyles. And I have my GarethMiles.com too. I forgot to do a movie review this week. Ted, where can I find you?
Have you had any coffees bought for you? Coffees
No.
on your thingy?
No.
Part of the reason is probably because you never plug it and tell anyone about it. Coffee.
No, I think people should buy you a coffee, not me.
Okay.
You need it to deal with me.
Okay, well, if people want to do that, they can do that. It's at paypal.me/Ted Salmon. And if you want links to anything else I do, we do, audio podcasts and MeWe groups, it's tedsalmon.com. You can all links out from there, or PodHub UK. We had a Whatever Works audio podcast out this weekend, and we shall have this coming week a projector room with Gareth and myself and Alan, so watch out for those.
Rip, roarin', rootin', tootin', yippity-doo. All right, well, we'll talk to you next week where we might have another person amongst us. Take care now.
Bye.
Goodbye.